I'm sitting in the chair, same way I was before, pondering this whole thing, going, did that really just happen? In the early 2000s, I was deeply impacted by a prayer ministry out in Kansas City called the International House of Prayer. Some of the teaching and the music and the passion and the intentionality that came out of that ministry just thumped me in a big way. And so in short order, we decided, hey, you know what, let's try to do that for Cincinnati. They got it in Kansas City to have a prayer and worship experience, calling out for God to fill the Church of Jesus Christ in Cincinnati with revival and hunger and passion. Boy, we were all about it. So we got a lot of encouragement in that way, and a man who had an old warehouse. He let us use this space. I don't know what it was used for before, but it was definitely hard floors and probably machine tooling kind of thing. We cleaned it all up. It was beautiful, beautiful to us. Not, everything was hanging over tops. There was all the lights and things that from the old days were all been disconnected, but they were still in there. But we used a big space for a prayer room. And so generally on Fridays, I ended very late, probably like 12:30 or 1. By the time I moved everybody out from the evening, I was by myself and it was late in the hours. And I was doing the normal routine at the end, going around, flipping off lights, emptying garbage cans. And as I came into the big room, kind of mostly darkened, I was cleaning up some things. I just sat down in the main prayer room and I thought, I wonder how many hours of worship and prayer has actually gone on in this room. And it was a lot up to that point. But my thought was, Lord, do you even hear us? It was some of the thoughts in my mind. I sat in the chair and just kind of relaxed before I turn off the lights and head for home. And as I sat there with that kind of a lesser light on me, thinking, will we ever be like our brothers and sisters out there in Kansas City? I had, first time this has ever happened to me like that, I had what can only be called a vision. The light was on in the room, but in the corner, I saw Jesus. Jesus was standing there. He was very tall, and he was looking at me over his shoulder like this, kind of like this. And he had a smile on his face. Now I could see him, I could see the room, but I was shocked. My eyes were open and I'm seeing this, and there was a bright light cascading from behind him. And the silhouette of him left this shadow that seemed to fall on where I was sitting. And I sat there and I'm thinking, am I actually seeing this? And in my mind's ear, I hear the Lord, as I'm looking at his face, smiling at me. He says, I see you, but I'm hiding you in my shadow. And in that moment, it just stunned me. I'm seeing this? Am I hearing this? Is this real? And I see you, but I'm hiding you in my shadow. I was saying, if you see us, my thought was, why don't you just turn and face us? For obviously, if you faced us, everybody would see that this little effort is backed by you. You've got strength on it. It feels so small. If you looked at us, it would make it all right. That was some of the thoughts in my mind. And then I hear him in my head again. I hear the word. He says, I'm hiding you in my shadow. He says, anything I look directly at, the enemy looks directly at too. I'm protecting you, is what he said to me. And it hit me like a pop in my chest. I'm like, the very thing I wanted him to do was to make us prominent, to make us big. He was purposely covering, shaping, protecting. What I was bemoaning, he was enjoying. And it just hit me, all in those moments, hit me in that moment. Like, oh, I watched it. And then this vision thing slowly faded away. And I'm sitting in the chair, same way I was before, pondering this whole thing, going, did that really just happen? The change, I felt something moving on my inside. Something had happened. Breathing deep, I probably sat there another minute or two, just thinking, I'm in a holy moment. I wish the rest of the staff was here. They could have felt all this. But so I slowly got up and I made my way to the side door. And there's a light switch right there, and I flipped the switch. And I stood there in the quiet of the room, just looking. And I've thought about that, what I'd just seen. Did this really happen? And so I said out loud, "So you see me right now, God?" And as soon as I said that, strange as it might seem, one of those signal lights, that kind of a blue flashing light that rotates on the top, kind of like on top of a police car, it instantly turned on up in the corner, and it sent these blue cascading lights whoosh, 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 around this darkened room, and it shocked me. And I said under my breath, is that really you, God? Is that really you, God? And I just watched this color flash around. I stood there for a few seconds, maybe it was longer than that. And I realized this was God. I knew it was God who had just kind of signaled me, if you will. So I said out loud, "Okay, I get it. I get it. You see me, God. Thank you." And as soon as I said that, those lights went out. I looked up at those lights. The whole room was dark again. It freaked me out in a good way, but a second time going, "Oh, is that really you?" I said again, "God." And as soon as I said that again, whoosh, those lights came back on again. And then now I was really kind of, not spooked, but I was like, when you're in a big warehouse by yourself, about 1:30 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning, it's a little creepy. And this was the moment. This was a moment that I didn't feel scared. I felt like connected. I waited a little bit longer and said, "I get it," again, just like I did before, and the lights didn't turn off. In fact, I went to the switchboard, the electrical switchboard, thinking, I can't stay here all night, because I stayed maybe 15 minutes. It was spinning and spinning. I flipped every switch in the switchboard, whatever that is. None of them would turn it off. So I turned everything off and everything back on, and these lights kept on going. So I thought, well, I'll just leave them till the morning. I'm going to come back here in the morning anyway. So I went outside, got in my car, sat in the car, and through the sliver windows, I could see the blue. And I just sat in my car looking at that. Nothing else in all the complex was flashing. There was no emergency signal going on in the place. It was just there. So I drove away. I came back the next morning, the lights weren't on. I told the story to a number of our staff. They were encouraged. We were all encouraged. It was amazing. For a few days we were praying with such fervor in that room. God, you see us even when nobody's here. We know that's true in a deeper way. But it kind of faded over time. The truth didn't fade. The way it felt about it faded a little bit. Well, about a year later, the fire inspector came and said we have to update our fire code, lights and alarms and all that. So when this installer was coming in, he was installing, putting things up, he walked into what we called the prayer room. It was the big open space. And I happened to be in there, and he was up in the corner, and he says, "Hey, you want me to take out this blue flashlight? There's a siren connected to it as well. I'll just take it out." He says, "Actually, the siren and the light," he says, "don't have any power going to them at all." I said, I'm certain I've seen those lights on, not more than a year ago." He says, "Well, I don't know how the heck that could happen. There's no electricity in the box." And my heart started thumping like it did that night. Oh. And I was brought back to that moment that He's protecting us. I'm certain of the fact that God hears and He sees.